Hi everyone, my name is Anna Fogel. I'm a outpatient dietitian over at Harbor View. I work in 5 different clinics. And so today we're going to talk about fruits and vegetables and why we should eat them. Okay, so just like a quick itinerary, what we're going to go over today, we're going to discuss components and health benefits of fruits and vegetables. We'll then go over some Washington agriculture stats and some seasonal vegetables and fruits that you may want to check out right now. Then common myths when it comes to consuming fruits and vegetables, tips for adding more of those items into your diet, and then a list of resources you may find helpful. Okay, so we're going to start off by saying that fruits and vegetables are nutrient dense. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that they provide minerals, vitamins, and other health promoting components, but have little to no added sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. So typically, we kind of classify foods as either nutrient dense, so with the aforementioned designation, or calorie dense, which means that foods just have a higher number of calories per weight. And this is based off of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which was created to help decrease the prevalence of certain chronic health related issues through informing us, the public, of changes that we can make to what we eat and drink. And so the recommended amount for a healthy adult, and this is, I want to specify that, an adult that is considered healthy, not someone who has some sort of chronic related illness, whether that be diabetes, hypertension, there are going to be different recommendations. But for a healthy adult, we recommend that you do about 2 to 3 cups a day of vegetables, specifically from 5 different subgroups. So that would be dark green vegetables, red and orange, beans, peas, and lentils, starchy, and then other. And with fruit, we would say you want to do about 1.5 to 2 cups a day. This can be whole, fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. And if you're going to do juice, it should be 100% fruit juice. So the first component of fruits and vegetables that I want to touch on is fiber. Fiber is also known as prebiotics. Basically, we have bacteria that lives in our gut, also known as our microbiota, and we call those probiotics. I'm sure that all of you have heard or seen something that says probiotics in it. Well, prebiotics is essentially the food that that bacteria needs to survive, and all it is fiber. So there are 2 types of fiber. There is soluble fiber, kind of acts like a sponge in our gut. It gels, which slows down our digestion and helps to contribute to us feeling fuller for longer. There is also insoluble fiber, kind of acts like a brush in our gut and remains intact and aids in clearing our colon. And that is what really contributes to our gut health. It that insoluble fiber really feeds those that probiotics, the bacteria that are in our gut, and they have a multitude of different beneficial effects, including the production of short chain fatty acids, which help in our immune system and brain function because it can actually cross the blood brain barrier. And so you can see that feeding that bacteria in our gut will help with making our digestion more effective. So, again, these recommendations are based off of the dietary guidelines for Americans. So, for men, again, healthy men between the ages of 19 to 50 years old, we recommend about 31 to 34 grams of fiber a day. And then for women within that same demographic, we would recommend about 25 to 28 grams a day. And that number is going to change based where you are in the life cycle. We wouldn't have a child eat that much fiber. That'd be quite a bit of fiber. Nor will we have somebody that's in our elderly demographic eat that much fiber. Um, we can then think about different plant-based sources of fiber. So beans and peas, specifically legumes, are a wonderful plant-based source of fiber, also a great source of protein. Fruit, especially the skin is where all of that insoluble fiber is going to be. So, any fruits with edible skins are extremely beneficial. And then vegetables. So, cooking fruits and vegetables will degrade some of the fiber, which is beneficial if you have like a digestive issue or you find that you feel uncomfortable after you eat raw fruits and vegetables. Cooking them will actually break down some of that fibrous structure, but you will still get the benefits from it. And so, if we think about it in brass tacks, 1 cup of raspberries, if we think about berries being little purses that are enclosed in skin, they've got that skin, so they've got that insoluble fiber, and then they have that soluble fiber within. 1 cup of raspberries has about 8 grams of fiber, and 1 cup of broccoli has about 5.2 grams of fiber. So fruits and vegetables are a wonderful source of fiber to diversify where you're getting it from, not only getting it from grain products like bread or flour. So our next component that we're going to talk about, and this is the primary thing that I think most people think about when they think of the benefits of fruits and vegetables, are what we call phytonutrients. They're also called phytochemicals, and they are compounds that are produced by plants that are beneficial to our cellular health and give fruits and vegetables a very distinct color and taste. So, when our bodies perform normal activities, we produce highly reactive substances containing oxygen, also called reactive oxygen substances. When there's an overproduction of these substances, that can lead to a condition called oxidative stress. While our bodies have mechanisms that prevent and repair cells from this oxidative stress, it has been indicated that there are antioxidant enzymes that are extremely important to defend our cells and be a part of that process to prevent cellular destruction, help repair cells. So essentially, phytochemicals act as antioxidants and can actually play a role in regulating the oxidative stress pathway. So if we're breaking that down into simplistic terms, if we eat more fruits and vegetables, we can help our cells stay strong and not degrade as quickly. So I love tables, so there's going to be quite a few tables in this, but I wanted to break down phytonutrients based off of color. And that is the easiest way to kind of think about where we can get it from and what those benefits are. So I'm just going to go through each one quickly and talk about some of the benefits and then some sources. So our first color is going to be red. It contains lycopene, which is a carotenoid. It is a scavenger of gene damaging free radicals. So that means any sort of molecules that can damage the DNA in our cells, leading to dysfunction, AKA cancer, is one thing to think about. So, really protective against different types of cancer, heart and lung disease. And so, we're thinking red. Right now, we're in tomato season, tomatoes, raspberries, watermelon, anything that has a red color. The next color is going to be orange and yellow. And so these fruits and vegetables contain beta-cryptocyan, which supports intercellular communication. It also helps to regulate our blood pressure and helps to prevent heart disease. So specifically, we can think about carrots, sweet potatoes, oranges, bananas, anything that's orange or yellow. The next color is going to be green. So green contains cancer-blocking chemicals like sulforaphane and different types of inodols, which help to inhibit the action of carcinogens. So carcinogens are essentially cancer-causing compounds. They cause cellular dysfunction. If we think about, a lot of times we think about carcinogens, we think about burnt food that can cause like some issues with how our cells function. Green fruits and vegetables will help to prevent that sort of dysfunction. So specifically spinach, avocado, again, anything that's green. Um, and then we have purple and blue. So these are actually my favorite. They contain anthocyanins, which are antioxidants that can actually help to delay cellular aging and help block the formation of blood clots. So essentially, they're really good for circulation and they're really good for cellular structure. Um, Anything that is purple or blue, that ranges from blueberries all the way to, eggplants, figs, so a multitude of different fruits and vegetables. And then last is going to be our white and our brown fruits and veggies. They contain allicin, which has anti-tumor properties, and then flavonoids, which have free radical scavenging capacity, again, reducing that reactive oxygen species. So that can help reduce the risk of cancer and the development of coronary heart disease. So anything white or brown mushrooms, daikon radishes, and onions. So the next component that I want to talk about are vitamins and minerals. And I know that everybody's heard we need to get our vitamins, minerals are important, but what are they? So the difference between vitamins and minerals is basically where they come from and what their chemical structure is. So vitamins are essential organic substances produced by plants or animals. And the reason that they are considered essential is because they are not synthesized in our body, so we need to get them from food. The only vitamin that is synthesized in our body is vitamin D. Everything else we need to get from the things that we consume. So there are two types of vitamins. There is water-soluble vitamins, which are all 8 of our B vitamins, and then vitamin C. Water-soluble vitamins are just that, soluble in water. So any excess that is not absorbed within our body is expelled from our body. The next type are fat-soluble vitamins. I think of the acronym DECA, vitamins D, E, K, and A, and excess is stored in the liver and fat tissues as reserves for later. So when we think about it, water soluble, if we eat an excess of what our body can actually absorb, it's just going to be peed out. Most common is vitamin C. People think if you pump yourself up with vitamin C that you're going to not get sick, but your body can only absorb a certain amount of vitamin C. So next are minerals. And minerals are inorganic substances and they can vary, the content of them can vary in our food based on the type of food that we're consuming and the soil that that food is grown in, because a lot of those minerals are coming from the soil that food is grown in. They are responsible for structural functions in the skeleton and soft tissues and regulatory functions like blood clotting, oxygen transport. They help to regulate our pH and also are a part of enzymatic activity within our body. So they're very important. There are two types of minerals. There are major minerals, which there are higher amounts of in the body, and we need more than 100 milligrams a day. And those include calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sulfur, potassium, sodium, and chloride. And then we have our trace minerals, which are smaller amounts in the body. We need less than 100 milligrams a day. And those would be iron, iodine, zinc, fluoride, selenium, copper, and zinc. There's more than that, but I'm not gonna go through every mineral that's out there. So let's talk about vitamins. There are a multitude of different vitamins, but here I wanted to focus on some of the most important ones that we can get from fruits and vegetables. So our first vitamin is going to be thiamine, also known as vitamin B1, was actually the first vitamin that was identified. And it is the catalyst for generating ATP in our body, AKA it helps us make energy to survive. So it is essential for our body's functioning, nervous system, heart, and brain. And some great plant-based sources are beans and legumes. One thing to note is that all beans are legumes, but not all legumes are beans. Some nuts are also, like peanuts, are considered legumes, so just something to keep in mind. And then peas, watermelon, and acorn squash are all wonderful sources of thiamine. Next is our friend vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid. It's an antioxidant, helps prevent our cells against those free radicals, and it really helps with our immune functioning. It's also required for the production of collagen and actually helps us absorb the mineral iron. Our The amount that our body can absorb on a daily basis is about 2,000 international units, which is what we use to kind of quantify, different metrics in our body and how much we can absorb. And so any more than that, we're really just going to pee it out because, again, remember, it's a water soluble vitamin. Um, Next vitamin, vitamin A. It is a provitamin A is also known as a carotenoid. So there's alpha and beta, and it is converted into retinol, which helps with vision specifically, because I'm sure that all of you have heard vitamin A is good for our eyesight. What it really helps with is allowing our eyes to adjust to different darknesses and to be able to dim, which is very important. It also stimulates the production and activity of our white blood cells. It helps to promote our bone health. It maintains the cells in the interior surfaces of our body, so the endothelial cells, and it also helps to regulate cell growth and reproduction, aka that's how it helps with your vision. So some great sources, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, spinach, mango. You can see most of those things are orange. So anything that's orange, you're going to get a good amount of vitamin A from. So the next vitamin is vitamin E. It is also known as alpha tocopherol, and it is used by the body as an antioxidant to enhance immune function and prevent clotting in our arteries. So it helps with our circulation. Um, Wonderful sources are dark leafy greens, kale, chard, spinach, and then other green vegetables like avocado and asparagus. Um, Next is vitamin K, contributes to calcium homeostasis and anticoagulation, aka it helps keep our bones strong and it helps our heart be able to function effectively. It also helps with insulin sensitivity, so it helps our cells take up glucose, which is the primary source of energy used by our brain, and is also involved in kidney health and reducing the risk of chronic kidney disease and cardiovascular disease. So, other good sources for vitamin K are cabbage, spinach, broccoli, kale. You can see kind of a theme with the dark leafy greens and vitamins. Okay, so now we're going to go on to minerals. So, these are 4 minerals, either trace or major, that I think are very, very important for us to think about, especially when it comes to food sources. So, and the main reason I picked a couple of these is because a lot of times we think that we can only get these minerals from animal products, but that's actually not the case. So the first one is calcium. We think about calcium, we think about our bone health, we think about our dental health. It is very, very important for bone strength, for normal blood clotting. It helps to contribute to muscle contraction and relaxation, and it aids in heart and nerve functioning. A lot of times when we think about calcium, we think about dairy as the primary source where we can get calcium from. And that's actually not the case. You can get calcium from dark leafy greens, peas, and lentils. Again, we're thinking about legumes or starchy vegetables. The next mineral is going to be potassium. So this helps to regulate our fluid levels in the body, specifically within our cells. So it helps with our blood pressure or with fluid regulation in general. And potassium comes from a multitude of different sources. We usually think of bananas having the most potassium. Actually, potatoes have more potassium than bananas do. So we can also think of other, fruit sources, melons and citrus are great sources of potassium. Next one is magnesium. So magnesium is extremely important. It's a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic systems in our body. It helps to regulate metabolic function. It regulates our blood pressure, contributes to our muscles contracting. It again helps with blood glucose control. So it helps with insulin sensitivity. And it's also a structural component to our DNA and RNA. It also helps to transport calcium and potassium into our cells. So it's extremely, extremely important. And when you think about magnesium, we want to think about anything that's really dark, green, or dark brown. So spinach, broccoli, or legumes. And then finally, we have iron. So there are two types of iron. There is heme iron that is typically found in animal products, and then there is non-heme iron that is found in plants. So our absorption of non-heme iron, so the iron that is found in plants, is actually lower than heme iron at only about 2 to 20% of what we consume. And it's influenced by the presence of other foods if we go harpen back to vitamin C helps with our absorption of non-heme iron. But that being said, it actually contributes more to our iron nutrition than non-heme iron. So it helps with the formation of our red blood cells, so our oxygen transport cells. And, it basically can help with DNA synthesis and it helps with just circulatory function. So, one thing to consider is that heme iron, so animal based sources, if we think about like beef, pork, any sort of animal protein, higher amounts of heme iron has actually been associated with higher development of those free radicals. So those, oxidative species that can actually hurt our cells. So that being said, you can still get iron from plant-based sources. It really just has to do with what kind of complementary foods that you consume to help with your absorption. Okay, so chemistry is over. Now we're just going to go into a little bit of our Washington produce. So, Washington is the second largest agricultural producer in the nation after California. We have volcanic soils, we have diverse climates. So, our state is a great place to grow different produce all year round. There's over 15 million acres of farmland that produce over 300 diverse crops. So we are the number one producer in the nation of apples, blueberries, hops. If you think about how many breweries are out here, most of the hops produced that are used around the world are produced in Washington. Um, Pears, spearmint oil, and sweet cherries. We are also the second largest producer of apricots, asparagus, grapes, potatoes, raspberries. And I really liked this kind of harvest of the month outline because it shows you different agricultural products that you may want to try based off of the month. So we're in September now. So vegetables that are in season right now are cucumbers, artichokes, carrots, cabbage, kohlrabi. If you've never had that, it's wonderful. It's kind of like a cross between like celery and an apple, and it's a little bit starchy. It's great, great source of fiber. Broccoli, eggplants, and leeks. And then the fruits that we have in season are plums, pluots, which are actually created in Washington. It's a hybrid between a plum and an apricot. Persimmons, tomatoes, blueberries, blackberries, apples, and melons. So now we'll go through some common myths and then kind of some truths that we want to think about. So our first myth, fruit is bad because it has sugar. So fruit does have sugar. Fruit contains glucose, which is the primary source of energy that our body uses in general. It is the main source of energy for our brain. Um, it also has fiber, which we know is a very beneficial component of fruits and vegetables. Fiber will signal our fullness, especially more than what we consider simple carbohydrates. So anything that's refined grains or has simple sugars added to them. The only time you really want to think about your portion size is really if you have some sort of nutrition related chronic illness, specifically some sort of diabetes, whether that be type 1 or type 2. That's when you would have to watch what your portion size is, just because your body is not able to utilize that glucose as effectively as somebody who has healthy pancreatic function. The second myth, fresh fruits and vegetables are healthier than frozen or canned. So, nutrients from fruits and vegetables will start to degrade once that item is picked. If it is no longer connected to its plant or under the ground or wherever it was growing, it will start to denature. So that means that the benefits, vitamins, and minerals will start to diminish. And so if we think about it, right, something is picked, it can take 1 to 2 weeks for that produce to be transported to a farm or from the farm to a supermarket and then purchased by the consumer. And then even more days before you as the consumer actually eat it. So part of that nutrient loss really is occurring in water-rich produce that sits at room temperature. And estimates show that at room temperature, fresh peas can lose about 50% of the vitamin C that they have in 1 week. So that's within 7 days. But if we think about frozen and canned fruits and vegetables, they are processed at their peak ripeness and then they are like immediately preserved. So they're going to preserve all of those nutrients that may denature if they were from fresh produce. They are also more shelf stable, which means that they will last longer than fresh fruits and vegetables, and they are typically more affordable. So, if we think about price being a part of how we eat, sometimes buying frozen fruits and vegetables is actually more cost effective. Actually, most of the time, it's more cost effective. The only things to really consider is we want to make sure that we choose low sodium canned vegetables. So, salt is used as a preservant. We want to make sure that we choose things that are lower in sodium. What's a low sodium food? Anything that has less than 5% of our total daily value of salt per serving. If something is labeled low sodium on the front, legally it has to have that amount, so less than 5% per serving. And, you know, you want to make sure you look for anything labeled specifically low sodium rather than reduced sodium, lower sodium. We like to make things really confusing in our food system. So, low sodium, that automatically it's going to be lower in salt. And then for fruit, you want to make sure that if it's canned, it's packed in 100% fruit juice rather than simple syrup. Simple syrup will have things like high fructose corn syrup or high amounts of added sugar, and we want to limit foods that have a lot of added sugar in them. So, last myth, smoothies and juice are just as beneficial as whole fruits and vegetables. So, while smoothies and juices are concentrated in vitamins and minerals, they have less fiber and are more highly concentrated in calories per serving compared to something in its whole form. Cold pressed juice is something that's very popular right now. It's essentially where just like juices, where liquid is extracted from fruits and vegetables between two metal plates. Smoothies are when whole fruits or vegetables are blended, usually with some sort of additional, products, whether that be dairy or some sort of protein. And they're a really good way to get concentrated vitamins and minerals and energy, a great source of energy, but they don't have the fiber that we like to see in our whole foods. And that can cause a big spike in our blood sugars. So that would be something to consider if, you're diabetic. And smoothies are a really good way for individuals who have digestive issues to get more vitamins and minerals without having to deal with that fiber. So anybody who has difficulty eating solid foods, it's great. And you can add different like calories in different ways, such as adding in sources that are high in protein, like dairy or nut butters. But again, you're not going to get that fiber that a healthy individual needs to feed that bacteria in your gut and help with effective digestive processes. Okay, so how do we eat more fruits and vegetables? Well, I mean, it's pretty simple, honestly. There is a lot of ideas around hiding fruits and vegetables, especially from kiddos. The problem with that is that we need to develop a taste for the things that we like. And as we get older, especially, that's extremely, extremely important. So, one thing is to have them visible and ready to eat. Make things very easy. Have fruit where you can see it on the counter or in the fridge. Buy pre cut vegetables or fruit or cut things when you get home and have them on hand to add for to meals or snacks. And this can also be where those frozen fruits and vegetables come in because they're already pre-cut, they're already ready to go. A lot of the frozen vegetables, you literally just have to add them to put them in the microwave and then you can microwave them and they're ready to go. The next thing is to try things over and over. So we want to try new things, but we want to try them multiple times, not just once. It can take introducing foods to a kiddo 10 times for them to actually accept it. So if we think about adults as well, we're going to want to introduce those foods to ourselves. So trying a new fruit and vegetable and trying it more than once. Trying it 2 times, 3 times, trying it in prepared in different ways to see if it's something that you may actually like. Going shopping with your community, whether that be your family or friends, make it an event and everybody try new things. It's a good way to introduce new fruits and vegetables in while also practicing some seasonality, especially if you're shopping at farmers markets or any sort of, outlets that have local produce. And then cooking new recipes based on what is available at the supermarket. I did have a couple of resources on the next slide that will have some recipe links as well. And the last one is really like this term that I kind of live by where it's don't yuck my yum. You want to model eating behaviors to others, especially to children and those who are picky eaters. If you're all sitting at a table and you go, "Oh, I hate this. This is gross." 9 times out of 10, the person next to you be like, "Oh yeah, I don't really like that either." But if you say, this isn't my favorite, but I'm gonna give it a try. It makes people more open to trying new things rather than having to hide these items from them or, essentially just completely disregarding any sort of like attempt to try new things. So don't yuck my yum. Okay, and so these are resources. These are all links to resources, and I'll send this uh, PowerPoint to Sebastian, but essentially the first one is Harvard University has wonderful informational pamphlets on fruits and vegetables, vitamins and minerals. They're just super easy to read, very effective. So that's the first source. And then nutritional information for specific fruits, and vegetables through the FDA. The next link is for Seattle Tilth Alliance, which has an urban garden in Wallingford. They do a lot of farm and urban gardening events, and they are a wonderful place to learn about the agricultural aspect of fruits and vegetables. And then the last two are for recipes. So the first one is through Oregon State University Extension. It is a wonderful link for different cultural recipes using seasonal fruits and vegetables, and all of those products that they use are covered under SNAP, so under your EBT card if you do get supplemental food help. And then the last link is for America's Test Kitchen. That is just something that I really like because they have wonderful free informational videos on how to not only what different fruits and vegetables are, but different methodology and why you would choose that methodology to cook them. And they're all tested recipes, so you know you're going to get like the best information from them. And that's it.
Wow, what a wealth of information. Thank you so much, Anna. There's a few questions in the chat that we ended up getting. Um, and I just want to remind, keep everyone, or just let everyone know, although we probably can't be giving you specific recommendations unless someone comes and sees you, we'll definitely certainly try to answer every question here. Um, Curtis asked, if I juice my fruits, do I lose the insoluble fiber? I think you may have mentioned that about the third myth about juicing in smoothies.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, so you do lose the fiber when you juice it, right? Because 'Cause you're just extracting the liquid. Not to say the liquid isn't nutrient dense in its own right, but, that fiber is so, so important.
Understood. Thank you, Anna. And then we had another question also from Curtis. The phytonutrients, I guess non-traditional, uh, like fruit and the colors that maybe appear on fruits and vegetables. Say, for example, if I'm growing purple beans, does that move them from the category of green beans to blue and purple? And do they lose their green benefits?
Hmm. Good question. I think it would probably push them into more of the purple realm. Again, like thinking about that color kind of dictating what the most prevalent phytonutrient is gonna be. So it may still have the benefits of green vegetables, but not in the high amounts that it would be if they were green beans versus purple beans.
Hmm, gotcha. And then Carly May asked, are there any typical vitamin deficiencies in women versus men?
Yeah, so if we think about it's not a vitamin so much as mineral deficiency, but women menstruate, so we lose blood. So anemia is extremely common amongst women. So that would be where increasing your vitamin C on top of eating more iron-rich foods come into play. So they work together to help with that absorption.
Hmm. There's actually a follow-up question. if, well, from a different person, but on the same topic, but are there any foods that may deter iron absorption?
Oh, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe copper, but I can't be for certain. So yeah,
Yeah,
can't think of anything off the top of my head.
right. But so long as I guess if during those times to be consuming more iron is probably going to be helpful as probably a little more deficient. But um, another question here from Tom. I'm curious how heat used in cooking affects the various nutrients. Do we need to cook for some to be unlocked while others should be consumed raw?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think with water-soluble vitamins, most likely you're going to affect it the most because you're losing some of that content in your fruits and vegetables. But it's hard to tell because that would be like on a like case by case basis, kind of like what you were saying, Sebastian. Like I can't really go through like every fruit and vegetable and tell you which ones are beneficial or not. But I will say this, if you notice that you have issues with digesting fruits and vegetables, cooking them is a great way to kind of help with those, mitigate those symptoms so that you can still get all the benefits from them. You may not get full amount of benefits, but you will still get benefits from them.
Understood. Thank you, Anna. And this one, I also wanted to ask a question similar to this. I think there has been a huge rise in popularity with like green supplements like AG1 or uh, Green Vibrance or any just amazing grass powder. But I guess mm, I'm going to combine my question with Haram's question here. But um, love them or hate them, green powders, but are they also a good substitute for fruit and vegetable servings? Because it's so hard to get them all in a day.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, if you are having difficulty eating that many fruits and vegetables, which I think most people do, they are a good way to supplement your intake. I wouldn't say you would want to replace them, because again, you get those other benefits from eating them in their whole form or eating them, kind of minimally processed because powders are just processed food, right? Like we think about supplements in kind of their own category a lot of times, but supplements are highly processed items. So, one thing to consider is like, well, how am I eating it? Am I making it in a smoothie? Am I adding it to juice? Those can dictate kind of like, if you blended it in a smoothie, you would still get some fiber versus like adding it to a juice. So I think it's a good thing to supplement, but I wouldn't use it as a replacement for eating fruits and vegetables.
Got it. Well, fruits and vegetables taste so much better anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if anybody else has tried a lot any of those grass powders or green powders, but they're okay. Um, I also see that Delaney, you've had your hand raised for quite a bit. If you'd like to unmute, please feel free to do so if you would like to ask your question. Oh, hold on. Uh, yes. Um, oh, saw the
Yeah,
hand went down.
sorry. I did not realize I raised my hand. That was an accident.
Oh, no worries. Just wanted to make sure you got a chance to ask if you had one. But in that case, I'll move on to Wendy's question here. Do dried fruits retain all the good properties of fresh?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, they do. You're still gonna get, yeah, like you're losing most of the water content, right? So you get a lot of those. I mean, you obviously get the fiber, which is great, and then it should retain most of its like vitamins and minerals, usually because they're like dried pretty immediately, so they're not allowed to denature over time. So yeah, I would say probably.
Yeah,
The only thing you wanna watch out for with dried fruits and vegetables is a lot of times they'll have sugar added to them because sugar is also a preservant, right? So, um, you just wanna make sure that you choose things that don't have any added sugar.
got it. So the dried mangoes at Trader Joe's is not the option.
Yeah, the ones with the, like, big crystals of sugar, they're delicious, and I mean, they're great, but, if you can, choosing the ones that are just the dried mango is always a good option.
Yeah, got it. And then Ellen Stone asked, where do bell peppers fit into that nutritional scale for vitamins and minerals?
Yeah, so it really depends on the color, right? So green bell peppers are just, bell peppers that have never really been allowed to ripen, but you would get the benefits from any sort of green veg. And then you have, lycopene in your red bell peppers, you have more vitamin C in orange and yellow. So they kind of it goes to show that when you allow things to ripen, it will change like their chemical structure. So you get different benefits just based off the colors is really the easiest way to do it. Like again, I can't tell you like absolute, amounts, but the colors where you want to go, what you want to kind of look at.
I found that so fascinating. Uh, it's never occurred to me that I guess letting things ripen will change the makeup of what you're going to be able to absorb.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
where seasonality becomes very important if you can, right? I'm not gonna tell someone who can't afford to eat seasonal foods, but if you can, buying seasonal foods is great because they're being processed when they're like, they're completely ripe. It's their time to shine. So like, tomatoes right now are amazing. Like anything that is allowed to ripen on the vine and then be eaten pretty much immediately, you're gonna get so many benefits from.
got it. And another question here. Allison asked, if there is a time, when should someone see a dietitian?
Um, I mean, you can always see one just to talk about, your eating habits, but typically we get referrals for when there is some sort of nutrition related chronic illness that's occurred. So, high blood pressure, somebody's A1C is slightly elevated, so that is a marker for diabetes. If you're having digestive issues, dealing with nausea, you're having heartburn, uh, also, if you do have like a deficiency, anemia is one that's very common, high cholesterol. So these are all things that you can kind of help with dietary intervention, but it's important to remember that your diet is more preventative. It's not going to cure you once you actually develop these issues. So meeting with a dietitian before they happen is actually can be very helpful because then you can discuss foods that you tolerate well that would align with like preventative measures.
Understood. And uh, there was another follow-up question in the dried versus fresh fruit question. Where does freeze-dried fruit fit into that
Oh yeah, I
nutritionally?
know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's like
Sorry.
all the rage right now, freeze-dried fruit. I think it's pretty similar to dried fruit. It's just like a textural difference. And I think because like dried fruit is where all the water is or the liquid is extracted, whereas freeze-dried is where it's like essentially just dried in there, so it's gonna just be, like, more of a textural difference. I don't know if it would affect the fiber content. That would be something to look up, though.
Hmm. But nutritionally, would they still be very close, the dried versus freeze-dried?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, just very crunchy.
Yeah.
Um, and then Haram also asked, what about food allergies? Is there any like is there can a dietitian help with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely, like, we can't diagnose you with a food allergy. You'd have to go to like an allergy specialist and take like an allergy test. But once you get diagnosed with a food allergy, we could talk about dietary interventions to help, limit foods that could cause a reaction while making sure that you have like diversity in your diet and you're getting everything that you need.
Got it. And uh, do you or just do you do consults for gut changes in perimenopause?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can do consults for gut changes. We wouldn't be able to look at what your actual like microbiota looks like, but we would be able to discuss foods that you may want to integrate in to help diversify your gut.
Got it. Thanks, Anna. And then Jocelyn asked, does pairing sourdough bread with a fat like peanut butter or avocado help with glucose levels? It sounds like maybe spiking is something that they may be concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so pairing a carbohydrate with a protein or fat-rich food will help slow down the digestion, which in turn can help with limiting big spikes in your blood sugar. I think one thing it's really important to remember is your blood sugar is going to go up no matter what you eat, right? If you consume something, your blood sugar is going to increase. And I think that this is an issue that has been coming up, especially now with individuals who do not have any sort of pancreatic dysfunction monitoring their blood sugar is you're going, "Oh my god, my blood sugar is going up. Something's wrong with me." No, that is a very normal metabolic response. If your blood sugar was not going up, we'd actually be a little concerned. Um, but that being said, if you're noticing that it's increasing extremely high above what we would consider normal, we call that postprandial. So after you eat, normal postprandial blood glucose, which is anything over 180 milligrams per deciliter, and it's staying high for a long period of time, that's where we would want to see like, oh, is there something going on with your pancreas? Is there maybe some gut issue? But that being said, like pairing those foods, so carbohydrate food with a fat or protein rich food is really going to help limit the carbohydrates from being absorbed very quickly. So that does help with managing those big spikes.
Got it. Thank you so much. And I think just a few more questions here. Um, Wendy asks if do you know if there are certain vitamin mineral deficiencies that people with celiacs has?
Oh, yeah. I mean, typically it's like similar, it would be like more fat soluble vitamins. Because if we think about like digestion and how celiac, like the inflammation in your gut will impair digestion. So typically they would recommend that individuals with celiac go on a multivitamin just to like inhibit that from happening. But yeah, I think that's like the most common that I can think of.
Got it. And then Manasi asked, what is your opinion on nutritional needs being connected to what we grew up eating, uh, especially if as immigrants we did not grow up in the U.S. Will they have, I guess, different needs nutritionally?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, everybody's body is a little bit different, right? Like we're not all the same. These recommendations, and they're again dietary guidelines for Americans specifically, are based in like pretty rigorous scientific research, but they're just very general recommendations. And so I think that it's your needs may be different based on like what satisfies you and what will provide you with the most energy. For example, like in many different Asian cultures, like white rice is very, very important, and it is a staple source of energy for most individuals from, that part of the world. So we want to make sure that those individuals are still eating those foods because it's going to provide them with energy that their body knows how to use and that they know how to cook and that it's like readily available for them rather than saying, oh, you should eat brown rice, right? Like that's kind of dumb. But yeah, I wouldn't say that you maybe have different needs per se. It really also has to do with how tall you are, how much energy you're exerting, where you are in the life cycle. So your needs when you're like 18 are going to be much different than your needs when you're 68, right? So that's, I think, more important to consider like as you age.
Right. Sounds like also for more specific recommendations, all the more reason to see a dietitian like you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and one last question popped in here. Uh, Anna, can you talk more about the satisfaction as a nutritional need?
Yeah, satiety, right? So we think about eating habits in two ways as dietitians. We eat with our gut, which means that we eat in order to survive. We eat in order to get energy to function. But we also have what are called hedonic eating patterns that are, you know, they are regulated by our brain. And they are also regulated by the same part of our brain that regulates our stress response. And so it's interesting if we're stressed, think about how that affects your eating. But that being said, there are different components in foods that can promote satiety. So protein is very important because you can eat a bunch of fiber and you can actually be full, but you may not necessarily be satisfied. So that's where integrating a protein source comes into play because protein will give us that feeling of satisfaction once we've eaten something. And that's why it's important to have a multitude of components in meals when you can. Um, you know, Fiber to help promote our fullness, protein to help with our satiety, and fat also helps with satiety and promoting energy. So
Very interesting. Um, doesn't seem like we have any more questions, but I'll leave maybe a minute or so if anyone would like to ask any last minute questions.